Hey everybody, my name's Allison Ostrander and I am the Director of Risk Tolerance here at Simpler Trading. And in today's video, I want to talk about how to sign up to trade options with a trading platform. Now, this is a question I get quite a bit of. A lot of people want to understand how they're able to put on the different types of option strategies available, like spreads, vertical spreads, butterflies, calendars. And you do need a certain account type in order to do that. So, in this post, I'm just going to walk through some of the questions that are typically asked by brokerage accounts whenever you're first setting up a trading account for yourself. So let's dive in here, right? This is a blog post that I did a while back that we're going to walk through. And of course, I will make sure a link of this blog post is put in the description. That way, you guys can read over it yourself or refer back to it if you need to. But let's go over some of the important points within it, right? The first step is to determine, of course, what type of account you're opening, or more specifically, who will have access to your trading account. Now, for the majority of us traders, it will be an individual account, right? Where it's just us who is the owner of the account and that will have access to it. But there are different types of accounts you can consider, like an entity or trust account, or even a joint account. A joint account, of course, is where you share access and control of the account with another person. So perhaps you're setting up an account with your husband or wife, your significant other, or maybe you're setting up an account as a parent that you also want your kid to have access to, then you might consider doing it as a joint account. Otherwise, if it just is you by yourself, like a lot of us do with our trading accounts, then it will be an individual account where you are the sole owner of it. The next question that you typically get asked whenever you're first signing up for your trading account is, what type of account do you wish to open? There's a margin account, a cash account, and a retirement account. Now, the first option being a margin account, to me, is the most flexible kind of account whenever you're wanting to trade option spreads, right? Typically, most brokerage platforms will ask you to set up a margin account if you want to trade things like verticals and butterflies, as well as uncovered calls. And the amount of risk, of course, will depend on how much margin you will be granted, which we'll talk about a little bit later in the sign up process. But I do want to first point out, before we dive into the other accounts, that even if you open a margin account, you don't technically have to trade off the margin itself. For example, the majority of the accounts that I hold currently across different brokerage platforms are margin accounts. However, I have never touched a single cent of that margin when trading, right? Whatever money that I have invested and put into the account myself is the amount of money that I am willing to risk, right? So even if you open a margin account, it does not mean that you have to trade the margin itself that you are granted. So just keep that in mind as an options trader, that if you want to trade spreads like verticals and butterflies and calendars, or if you do want to do things like uncovered calls or uncovered puts, a margin account is what you're going to need to look at. But once again, if you're doing things like vertical spreads or butterflies, you don't technically have to dip into the margin and risk it in order to trade those strategies properly. The second type of account that they'll ask you about is a cash account. And a cash account, right, most traders like to sign up for as well. It's where it's fully paid by you, right? Whatever money you put out there is the money that you use. But the downside to cash accounts is you're usually limited to the type of strategies that you can trade when using options. So, for example, if you wanted to trade spreads, especially if you wanted to trade uncovered options, you probably won't be able to do that in a cash account across the majority of brokerage platforms, especially anything uncovered, right? Like an uncovered call or uncovered put. I have heard from a couple of traders in the past that a few brokerage platforms that they've used do allow them to trade spreads in a cash account. But from my experience, that's usually not the case. Usually, if you want to trade strategies like vertical spreads or butterflies, you will need to sign up for a margin account. But If you're solely just wanting to either buy stock, or if you just want to open long call and long put options, right? Buying to open a call or buying to open a put, then of course you can consider a cash account, where you won't necessarily be granted any margin, right? But the cash and capital that you put out there is the one that you're willing to risk and potentially lose or profit from. And the reason why sometimes traders go for a cash account and why brokerage platforms like it is it gives peace of mind of the account, right? That you're never going to really have that risk of being assigned shares because you're telling them that this is all the money that you have and these are the limited strategies available to you. So just keep that in mind. If you want to do things like spreads, then a margin account is typically what you want to look to sign up for. A cash account is good for things like just long calls or puts or buying stock and shares up front, just the way it is. The last type of account that a lot of people ask about is a retirement account, right? And this, of course, can be broken up across different types of IRAs: traditional, Roth, SEP, beneficiary, traditional. And certainly, if that's the route that you're going, right, where it can offer those tax benefits depending on the type, then certainly take a closer look at this document to go through some of those. Once again, typically in a retirement account, depending on how you have it set up, your trading platform, your brokerage platform may view some of the riskier strategies, right? Quote unquote, riskier strategies like spreads and butterflies. They may not allow it in a retirement account. So it's a little bit limited on the strategies, just like a cash account can be. And so it's something that you want to be mindful of. And of course, there are a few more steps to opening a retirement account, which you can certainly do and look at. But once again, if you want the flexibility of trading spreads like verticals, or to short options, a margin account is what the majority of the traders choose in order to take those option strategies. They will, of course, right? When you continue to go, another question that you are often asked is affiliation questions. Now, most of these do not apply to the average trader, right? And as you can see here, a lot of these probably aren't the case for you. Are you a 10% shareholder or policymaker of a publicly traded company? If so, then you got to answer yes. But if you're like the majority of us, right, probably not. And so you can answer no to that. Are you employed, registered, or affiliated with a securities or futures member firm? Exchange or exchange member? If you are, right, then you'll have to click yes. If not, then it doesn't apply. And so these are really specific questions. Usually it's just something that they want to make sure about, like if you're registered with the SEC or anything like that, or if the account is maintained by another person, right? These are some of the questions that they want to ask about because they don't want any funny business, right? It's not like this is becoming a plot of an episode for Billions, or you find yourself doing some insider trading, if you will, that kind of stuff, right? So they want it to be very upfront to make sure that when you open your trading account, they have an idea on exactly who you might be affiliated with, to make sure that you're not doing anything that you shouldn't be doing, right? No funny business, if you will. So the majority of us are going to answer no to that, but of course, always answer that truthfully in regards to yourself. Another question that you'll run into, and this is a little hiccup that a lot of options traders sometimes run into when they don't realize, is they'll ask you kind of what you want to do, right? And also what your experience or your knowledge base of this is, right? And what I mean by this is, what do you want to do? Do you want to buy stock? Do you want to short and sell stock? Do you want to trade options? Do you want to do covered calls? Do you want to do risk defined spreads like verticals? Do you want to do sell to open calls or puts that are naked, meaning they don't have anything in protection with them, right? Those are riskier strategies. Do you want to trade futures? So they'll kind of ask you what you want to do with your account, right? What kind of trading do you have in mind when you first look to put money in it and invest it? And then, of course, from there, they'll want to ask you your knowledge level, right? Are you familiar with trading stocks? Are you familiar with trading covered options and spreads or uncovered options, right? Those naked calls and puts, if you will. Are you familiar with futures trading? And typically speaking, a brokerage account wants you to answer that you have extensive knowledge in these areas, right? So if you apply for a margin account because you plan to sell vertical spreads and things like that, usually to get accepted for that margin account, a brokerage platform wants to hear that you have extensive knowledge. Now, of course, if you're starting to learn how to trade, your knowledge might not be there quite yet, but if you want to practice and get good with it, then of course you will want to try and open an account that has the flexibility for those strategies. So keep in mind, you still want to answer this, of course, truthfully. But if you do want an account where you're able to access selling spreads or selling naked calls and puts, or you want to look at doing futures trading or something like that, usually for peace of mind for the brokerage account side, right? They want to make sure that you have an extensive knowledge of this stuff. If you ever put that you have a limited knowledge or even good knowledge, they may not grant you the account type that you're wanting because they're trying to protect their back, right? They really want to make sure that you have a good idea of what you're doing out there in order to grant you access to that type of an account. So just keeping that in mind. And of course, that's where trading and education comes in, from yourself, from paper trading, as well as from here at Simpler Trading too, to gain that extensive knowledge. So you have the education, of course, available to you to keep it on the right side here when signing up for an account. The second thing that a lot of traders get stuck on when trying to open for example, a margin account to trade spreads is the trading objective, right? And this is one that can kind of confuse people. I know when I was first signing up for accounts by myself, when I wasn't trading family accounts anymore, but I started trading my own. The trading objective kind of threw me for a loop when it was first asked, when I was first asked this question. And the reason why is because of how I view trading versus how the brokerage account views trading. And so, of course, keep in mind, you always want to answer in regards to how the brokerage account views it, not necessarily our own opinion. For example, as you can see here from this screenshot, right? One of the questions that you can get asked as a your trading objective, is it speculation? Meaning you're taking larger risks, usually by trading frequently with the hope of a higher than average gain. Are you trading growth, right? Are you investing in stocks, options, or futures with strong earnings or revenue growth or potential? Are you trading for income, right? Strategy focused on current income rather than capital appreciation. Or are you trading for capital preservation, right? A conservative investment strategy characterized by a desire to avoid risk of loss. So when I was first doing that, and I was answering these questions in my brain, the way I'm trading is for income and growth, right? The idea is I'm looking to make trading a full-time job, and obviously I want to grow my account. But that's not how the brokerage account views it, right? Usually, if you're wanting to trade options, and in particular, you're wanting to trade spreads, and butterflies and things of that nature, if you really want to have that flexibility, oftentimes the brokerage platform is looking for the answer to be speculation at that point. Because to them, even though, right, you might have a strategy, or you've certainly seen other traders out there within the community use their accounts as a way for income or for overall growth. That's not how the brokerage account views it. The brokerage account views all those strategies as speculation. They think that trading vertical spreads and butterflies is of a higher risk, that you'll be trading more frequently, and therefore it's a bit more of a speculation when you put on the trade. Even if, in general, usually it might be used for income, the brokerage account views it as speculation. So this is one that sometimes, tricks people up. It's something to be mindful of. But speculation is usually the answer that they're looking for whenever you want to trade vertical spreads and options and all the different possibilities that options gives you in regards to strategies. If you want the most flexibility on that, then typically the brokerage account will view that as speculation for your trading objective. And then, of course, they're going to ask you things like, what is your income, right? To understand how much margin they might give you. So if you're opening a margin account, they're usually going to ask you, okay, well, what's your kind of income? What's your net worth? Once again, answer that truthfully, right? You can still open a margin account where even if you don't make a lot, the brokerage account basically might not assign you a lot of margin, right? So if you're a lower income, you're maybe newer to the employment world, you're just out of college, so you're trying to build that base, or maybe you're just out of high school, right? Who knows? But let's say you're just at the start of your journey, right? You've left your parents' house and you're on the lower end of things, if you will. That's okay. You can still potentially sign up for a margin account and be accepted. It just might mean that you're not given a lot of margin to trade by the brokerage platform. And once again, that's fine. Like I mentioned earlier, you don't have to technically touch the margin in order to open a margin account and trade option spreads, for example. So please keep that in mind. But make sure you, of course, answer truthfully with that. And that is usually all the questions that they end up asking you. So I hope this was a little bit helpful and beneficial to you guys. For those of you who are looking to open an account, once again, I will make sure that this link to this blog post is posted in the video description. So that way you can go back and read through the whole blog post if you need to, or go over it as a reminder for yourself. But hopefully it helps get you past some of the hurdles that I know a lot of traders, when they're first opening their accounts, that they run into, that they come back and ask me questions on, like, well, I thought, for example, I was able to do spreads in a cash account, or I thought, that I was looking at this as an income account, but they didn't approve me because they didn't realize that the brokerage account views it as speculation, for example. And so these are just little tips and reminders of what the brokerage account is looking for with those answers versus how we might view them, and the difference between the two whenever first signing up for your account. So thank you so much for joining me. As always, may the trade be with you, my fellow Jedis, and I look forward to talking to you next time. Bye.